Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Year 5 curriculum evening. It's been amazing to see your boys transition from Year 4 to Year 5. They haven't physically moved that far in Avenue Elmers, just down the stairs, but they have settled brilliantly, and it's been wonderful to see all the new faces. And we're hoping that they've come home and really enjoyed their first week so far, and it's unbelievable that it's already been a week. And so much has happened, and we wanted to obviously have this evening just to welcome you to Year 5 as parents, just to try and provide you with as much information as possible when you're supporting your sons across the curriculum, and also just to have some insight into some of the things that they're going to be doing and what they've got to look forward to in their sort of, second to final year in at the boys' prep before they move on to Year 6. So I'm not going to speak for that long. I just wanted to remind you that there is a chat function. It's the little Q&A function with the question mark. So please, if you've got any questions, just post them directly into the chat. And can you start posting those immediately? What we tend to have is a flurry of questions at the end. And what will then happen is sometimes they might get missed. And I will endeavour to answer those questions either directly to you if it's a personal question, or if it's a more general question, please do just post it, and I'll pose that question to Mr. Temlett and Ms. Dillon, who and Mr. Warren's here as well this evening, and they may be able to answer those questions. If your question is of a more personal nature and it's something very specific to your son, please do just email either his form teacher or myself, Mrs. Chong, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Johnston, and we'll be more than happy to help. But I am going to pass over now to Ms. Dillon and Mr. Temlett, and they will be talking through Year 5 this year.
Welcome, my name is Mrs. Dillon, and this is Mr. Temlett, and we are Year 5 teachers for your boys. It's been really nice to welcome them back. Lots of them have settled really well, and it's a special welcome to all the new families that have joined us from here and also from other countries. So we're really enjoying settling your boys in, and I hope they're coming back with some really good feedback. So the purpose of today is that we're going to run through some of the expectations for this year and some of the things that might be new. And if you're a new family, just giving you some information about the school. It won't be an extremely long presentation, but it'll just give you some ideas of what's going on.
Cool. Okay, so this is a list of the teachers that will be working with your children this year, and as you know, I'm new as well, and I'm getting to know all of them. So the children probably have got to step up on me in terms of knowing the majority of the staff. But this, just to sort of let you know as well, this presentation, the slides will also come home. So rather than reading off the list and so on, that will come home to you, so you can see who's teaching your children and for what subject.
So for those of you that are new to the school, we have the specific teacher model here. So your child has myself and Mr. Temlett for their class teachers as their main point of call, but they also have lots of other teachers, subject specialists that teach them, so they get quite a wide variety, and it's a good setup getting them ready for secondary school. But they tend to remain in the classroom, and the teachers will come to them, apart from specialist subjects like art and games, which would obviously be in specific areas.
Cool. Okay, so Year 5, we were talking about this, and absolutely Year 5 is that sort of preparation almost for the end of Key Stage 2. It's a remarkably short time until they actually sort of make that transition to secondary school. So it's an opportunity to really build confidence, really enjoy their time. That's got to be really important. Sort of enhance their social interactions with each other, but definitely building that emotional resilience, and it's that's so important when we then look to the next point about academic resilience. They need to work on that confidence and that sort of comfort within the school and within their studies to really sort of push that academic resilience on, and we really want to see them continuing to build on that progress. And as I say, preparing for their final year of primary school next year. So yeah, it's a really good year, but it's a busy year, and there'll be challenges along the way, and that's a good thing.
So I know lots of you will probably have questions about 11 plus and about secondary school choices, but Mrs. Chong will have specific meetings during the year, giving you the information and background knowledge and talking you through some of the processes, and also discussing with you some choices that you might have for your son. So there'll be more details about that during the year, and we won't fast forward too much into that, but that will be discussed in more depth and specific meetings for that during the year. So thinking about our 3 R's and school rules, we've reminded the boys about these. They do understand that they're respect, responsibility and resilience. And we're looking really this year at resilience and how they can overcome difficulties, not giving up if they're stuck on things, trying, working out ways to solve problems, understanding that mistakes are okay. If you make mistakes, it's a way to learn from them. And these are messages that we've been reinforcing in school. We're also thinking about respect and about having really good manners. And we're just reminding the boys all the time about saying their pleases and thank yous, holding the doors open, being extra polite, and they're really shining through on this. So you've obviously done a really good job at home, everybody, and they've been brilliant at school as well. So we look forward to more of that.
Cool. So curriculum topics of this year, obviously currently looking at the Tudors, and as a historian by degree, really excited about this topic and how we can present it and work with the children, discover and work with the children this term. And then moving on through the spring, we're looking at coastlines, a bit more geography, and then in the summer, bringing that sort of study a little bit more to recent history, modern history in terms of the 20th century. So
we do a cross-curricular format for lots of our subjects. Some of them are humanities based for the topics. We're hopefully going to be able to involve some trips, currently in the process of organising a trip to Hampton Court. But if those of you that live locally that do have a Hampton Court pass, it's really worth taking a child back to Hampton Court to have a look around, or the Tower of London, just to get their knowledge up to scratch on Tudors for this term. That would be really helpful. So Mr. Temlet's going to talk about the maths curriculum for this year.
Cool, yeah, so really excited about teaching maths. That's kind of what I was basically employed to do, and teach maths at the school. And we are straight into place value. So thinking about sort of fundamental building blocks effectively, which are going to sort of, provide that sort of groundwork for moving on into their sort of 4 operations. So far, really impressed just in terms of how the children work. We're practicing through our lesson starters, their mental strategies all the time. And it's really good. The kids are really keen to share their strategies, learn from each other, and that sort of constant continual practice is something that will really feed into their confidence as they move through their maths topics. Obviously place value they do each year, but it's really progressing that forwards. In terms of their written 4 operations, I think it's one of those things, the written side of things can be a little bit abstract. So it's important that we sort of keep the ideas of estimating, predicting, again going back to those mental strategies, so they know where they're headed, and then sort of those little errors like using the wrong operation and so on can probably be tidied up, and sort of certainly alarm bells can go off when the estimate and the result don't quite match up. Within the lessons, we'll be looking at three key aspects in terms of their fluency with number, in terms of their reasoning with number, and also with problem solving. The problem solving will involve multi-step worded problems, and that will be a sort of a variety of contexts such as time and money, to name a couple. But there'll always be a big emphasis on jottings and showing working, and that's a sort of fundamental routine that we want to sort of build into the children's work, because as they do move towards exams and so on, then there definitely is a high opportunity for marks for working and method and so on. Just noting with Mrs. Lewis, the head of maths, that some of those exams that our children are aiming towards do have quite a strong focus on fractions, decimals, percentages and ratio and number work. It's probably over 50% of those papers involve those topics. So whilst we will be looking at other topics such as shape and so on, those are the sort of the ground rock that the children need to be really confident in as they move through year 5 and into year 6. And I suppose that's then a real opportunity for you at home to also sort of help and consolidate with the resources such as Manga High. And Mrs. Lewis is due to write to you very imminently with regard to some cards which can come home and provide some sort of more exam specific style questions that that the children can practice at home, but she'll be writing to you in due course about that. Automaticity in terms of their key facts is absolutely key. So we've already sort of looked at times tables and looking at where they all stand with regard to that. And that's something that I just really encourage. So whether it's through TT Rockstars or just that sort of regular check-in, we will check in all the time in school with regard to those key bits of information that provide a bit of confidence to the children if they can just sort of grasp that information quite automatically. That way they can give more of their brain power to resolving problems and so on. And then lastly, it's really just sort of that exam technique. I mean, I've already talked about sort of technique, you know, sort of gathering marks, sort of sitting there stuck on a question when there may well be 2 or 3 questions later on in a piece of work that they absolutely can do really easily. So it's kind of sort of making sure that they learn to be quite smart in terms of how they approach questions and work and so on. And we will continue to sort of impart all of those useful bits of advice and technique as we go through the maths curriculum.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about English, and we are looking mainly at narrative poetry this term. So we're focusing, our book to study this term is The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes, which is a story which has a narrative structure to it, but it's told through the form of poetry. It's quite high level vocabulary in there. It's good for the boys to expand their vocabulary. I would encourage them, and we'll be doing lots of work in class to use thesauruses and to find synonyms for different words, and we're looking at figurative language as well. So one of the things we will be concentrating on is figurative language and developing their depth and breadth of vocabulary. So one of the things backing this up, which I'll talk about in one of the other slides, is about their reading this year. So we'll be reading a lot in school, and we're making reading a big focus in school, but we also encourage them to actively read at home, which is quite important. To that end, comprehension and answering techniques, reading a text carefully, annotating the text, and using appropriate quotes. That's another area that we'll be working on in English. We're building on what they started last year, and we're giving them more structure and just giving them more building blocks. We'll possibly start doing some of the ISEB papers and comprehension style techniques, which are a little bit harder, a little bit trickier, and boys will find these challenging. I know a few of them have tried these already, but they are a challenging text, and some of them are quite high level, and it's worth them seeing those from the point of view of the vocabulary used. So we'll be using lots of vocabulary, high level language, figurative language, and trying to develop their breadth and understanding of those things. We'll also be doing writing for a variety of purposes, for entertaining, for informing, for styles which are non-fiction and fiction, and we're trying to get a big breadth of writing from them this year as well. And we've also this year got a big focus on how they can write. It doesn't have to be reams and reams of pages. We're just looking at quality writing. So they might only write me a couple of paragraphs, but the content of that is going to be really high level. So that's what we're aiming for during this year. We're getting there. I think we'll get there. Our other topics are the tutors, which we've mentioned already, and we've also got science, and this term we are doing properties and changes of material. Mr. Warren's here. Mr. Warren, would you like to say anything about the science?
Nothing in particular. Vocabulary, using the correct scientific vocabulary. I'll scuttle in. Hello. Yeah, using the correct scientific vocabulary is absolutely crucial. We did a lot of this last year, as many of you may be aware, through the home learning, ensuring that they can define those words, and trying to be as practical as possible. But lots to look forward to Yeah, Mr. King and myself will be teaching that. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you. So you'll be receiving, I believe it's tomorrow, curriculum overviews, which give you a layout. This is a new format and layout for this year. We're hoping they'll be more accessible for you, and you'll be able to keep them in a visible place at home. So you'll be able to refer to them, and if you ask your child, what did you do at school today, and they say nothing, which is often the case, you can refer back to these very briefly and say, well, I heard you were learning about Tudors this term, so can you tell me something? And it's just a point of reference for you, really, so you can see what's going on, and the boys can refer back to it. And we're very happy with the format and layout for those, which I hope are very accessible for everybody. So with the curriculum overviews on the last page, you're going to find some ideas for home learning. So the children will be getting English and maths learning every week, along with some spellings and reading, but these are some ideas for what they can do outside. So Mr. Temlett was talking about the maths revision cards, the Corbett maths revision cards, and there'll be an email coming home to you about that soon from Miss Lewis. But all these are things you can refer to and reference if there is a week where they need extra homework, or if your child, if you feel your child needs more homework than has been set for that week, always refer back to these. There's always something on here that can extend and enhance their learning as well. So as we said, maths and English homework that will be set on a Tuesday. Often we'll be setting those on Showbie. 95% of the time we'll be setting them on Showbie, so your child will have access to the Showbie codes. For the children that are new, Showbie will be on your iPads. I know there's a little bit of delay on setting up some people's iPads, so hopefully you'll be able to get those for the beginning of next week, and you'll be able to access all homework on Showbie. Often we will say if in English it needs to be sometimes it will need to be completed on the iPad, other times it will be handwritten. So it's a mixture of the two, but we'll be clear in our instructions on how we'll get you to do that.
Okay. So reading, I can just go through the reading very quickly. I mean, it's really just to sort of echo what Hannah said just a moment ago with regards to, the big push on reading. It underlies everything that they do in terms of access to subjects as they move through their education. So absolutely core area of the curriculum. Moving into the school, lovely libraries with huge, big focus on getting them really lovely areas for the children to be really inspired. Real focus, just from talking with the staff with regard to the books that are populating the libraries as well. And that hopefully will sort of give the children, they'll have a library session each week as well. And that gives them an opportunity to sort of get a little bit of advice on what books, they might want to pick and so on. But, further to that can be, that whole enterprise can be supported at home just by ensuring that they are getting their regular reading, and the boys in my class we were discussing today just with regard to who had a book at home, who had a book on the go, what sort of books were they reading, and we absolutely would sort of advocate that as part of their homework they are getting that regular at least 20 minutes a day reading.
Thank you. So we're going to aim for a digital reading record this term, which will be on Showbie as well, and children can record when they read, and there's some possible responses to their fiction here, and it's for them to sort of start to self-manage themselves. So they add the date and title of the book they're reading, and then respond to the different questions about what they've read and a little bit about it. Obviously lots of them are reading longer chapter books now, so we wouldn't expect them to finish the whole book, and I don't always want them to put page 1 to 10 that they've read, because that takes away the enjoyment of it. But there's a few reading responses and reading response questions that they could use to just type in a little answer to when they do read, and we'll be checking up on those. I think it would probably be easiest for us to do that when we taken the homework on a Monday. So the homework will be set on the Tuesday, but we'll take it back in on the Monday. So we'll be able to check once a week how their reading's gone, and there'll be house points and rewards for all the people that go over and above on updating and informing us on their reading journey.
Cool. Communication. So we are going to make contact with you sort of formally every fortnight, just to sort of update you on what we've been doing in terms of English and maths, particularly. So that will be a fortnightly email, and that will also give you an opportunity to then sort of look at the weeks ahead and what we'll be looking to cover moving forward. The only other thing, it's the same any school I ever work in, is do let us know, do stay in touch with us, just like Byron said right at the very beginning. We are that point of contact on that sort of day-to-day aspects of the boys and how they're sort of conducting business at school. So, if there are things like end of day changes or anything that you feel that we need to know, then absolutely do contact the boys admin or do contact us and we can get things updated.
Thank you. Also, in regards to that, if there is a problem or your child's had a problem during the day, please do contact us. If we've not been made aware of it, we don't want anything to escalate. It's really important that you do communicate with us to let us know. I know obviously with post-COVID, we are minimising parental contact within the school building itself, but do contact us either by phone or email, and we'll by all means phone you or email you to discuss any problems or issues that you may have. So we do have mentoring this year, and we did have it last year as well. Some of the boys will be able to tell you a little bit about that, and that's in different groups. And what we're doing in that, it gives the children a little bit of downtime and a little bit of discussion time. During the year 5 and into year 6, lots of children start thinking about their secondary school choices. Lots of children want to discuss things in small detail. They might have friendship issues they want to discuss, and mentoring is a way for us to support and nurture them. And I think that's a real special thing that this school offers, that they do offer that extra pastoral support, and that's really what we're doing within the mentoring. We're also looking at promoting positive mental health and supporting the boys' mental health and discussing things and talking about how they feel as well. So mentoring is 2 sessions a week, and that's half an hour, and we're doing that with 5 different teachers, so it's quite good for the boys to have those smaller groups to discuss.
Cool. And then games on a Wednesday and Thursday. It's always been the same for me, but I think it's a bit new for the boys. So yeah, Wednesday and Thursday, they've got really excited about it. It's been fabulous to see them go off, particularly the contrast of days. To yesterday, hot, keep hydrated, good advice. They came back full of beans about their football, and then today, is it going to rain? Is it going to be muddy? So yeah, but very, very upbeat and looking forward to their games on a Wednesday and Thursday.
Now we've hopefully added residential to the end of this. We would love to take the boys on a residential this year. Where to at the moment is being discussed. In previous years we did go to France, but whether it will be France this year or whether it will be PGL, because I know the boys have obviously missed out on those. It's really important that we get those back in the curriculum. So we'll start off with small scale trips, and everything crossed that we would be able to do a residential potentially in the summer term. We'll keep you posted.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. Obviously, from my point of view, I've got to see a few of you around the corner as we've sort of pick up on Monday and Tuesday, but I look forward to meeting a lot more of you, a lot more properly as the year goes on.
Thank you. Mr. King's going to forward us any questions that have come up, and we'll try to answer them as best we can.
Great. There are a couple of questions. The first one I'm just going to ask you, Mrs. Dillon, was just around spelling and how spelling will work this year. Okay, so spellings will be set as part of the homework. We will have spellings differentiated depending which group your child is in, accessible for their own individual needs. And in response to that, if they have an individual education plan, that will be something that's targeted specifically for them. And the spellings will be coming with the boys on the Tuesday, and the test will be on the following Monday. So we're starting those from next week. Great. The rest of the questions myself and Mrs. Chong will answer, and obviously if there are any more that are relevant to either yourself or Ms. Temlett, we'll pose those. I'll start because there are a couple of curriculum questions, and this is just a follow-on to the discussion you were having about the books. There was a question around any suggestions on age-appropriate books to read, and the curriculum overviews that we're sending out tomorrow. You'll notice on the back there is some links there. I think one of the common links that the teachers send out is a link from the Reader Teacher, which there's some fantastic resources on there, and obviously age-appropriate books, and there'll also be some recommendations around tutor books and links to the topic that your son can read. But I also wanted to just mention that we have overhauled the library, got new books in, but we've also set it up in a different way. So we've decided to set the library up in year group sections. You've still got your general sort of non-fiction, poetry, etc., and those kind of lovely, those kind of picture books and those coffee table books, which the boys love to dip into. But we've then set up a year 4 section, a year 5 section, and a year 6 section with sort of, at a minimum, the 100 best books in each of those sort of age categories. So we can direct the boys there, and the teachers can direct them when they take them down to the library. But if you want personal recommendations for your son, or if he's struggling with reading or he's reading too much, whatever, please just contact Mr. Temlett or Mrs. Dillon. Another question that we get asked by Year 5 parents at this point every year is around streaming and setting in maths and English. Now, we don't set in maths and English. In year 6 this year, we've got 3 teachers for maths and English, and we haven't set the classes there. They're still mixed ability classes. That being said, we teach right to the top, so we aspire to, extend the boys as much as possible, and we really have high expectations for them. But our goal is to support everyone to reach those high expectations that we have of the boys, and so there'll be a variety of support that's given to boys that might struggle with the concept. That could be adult support, it could be differentiated learning materials. There might be the odd intervention that your son goes to, and that could be a stretch intervention where we take them out and do a couple of more challenging activities, and vice versa, where they might require support in a particular area. So that's the way that we have structured our setting and our mixed ability classes. We feel that the boys benefit from it, that they make the most progress under these circumstances, and that it actually realizes the best outcomes for them when they leave us at the end of year 6. There was a question around Manga High and Atom Learning. This is a good question. It's actually something I have noticed at times as well. It was just around the kinds of questions on Atom Learning. Sometimes you get questions where there are a couple of answers. So obviously they're multiple choice, but a couple of the answers are almost obviously wrong. And it just seems like the level might be a bit misaligned. One thing about Atom Learning is that it is a recommended resource, particularly for the 11+ process, and that's why we try and get the boys sort of used to it quite early on. That being said, any feedback I get on these products, I'll feed straight back to the companies, and I'll let them know. The cool thing about Atom Learning is that you can actually put an algorithm in which tweaks the questions, so the boys will probably be getting more difficult questions as the year progresses, but I do appreciate that feedback. There's a question around a recommended reading list, and yes, like I said, there will be links on the curriculum overviews for recommended reading. And Mrs. Chong, would you like to talk a little bit about senior schools?
Yes, I can see it's quite interesting, having done Tuesday and Wednesday nights in curriculum evenings, how the attendees go up as you go up through the years, and I don't know if that's your invested interest over the time or your panic about the fact that senior schools are coming up, and we absolutely don't want you to do that. We really don't want you to panic. We have set plans in motion, even over the summer, just before the summer holidays, planning for these boys, and they are very much, you'd think that year 6 now are becoming our main focus, and actually it's the 5s that end up taking quite a lot of the hit, if you like, at this stage. And one of the things that we've talked about is this responsibility for their own learning. I've talked to a couple of parents in the last few days about homework and how it's like pulling teeth and trying to get them to do anything, and you're worried about the onset of more homework and how they're going to cope with that, and then they're doing other homework on top of that. What I would say is that most of your boys would hate to appear at school the next day and for their teachers to say, okay, you're just going to have to stay in for another 15 minutes because you didn't do your homework last night, did you? And you need to catch up with it. there won't be many times more that they would do that, because they do aim to please. So if it takes you 2 hours to try and get them to do their homework, which actually we know is a 15-minute activity, please do feel free to email one of the teachers and just say, actually, we're having real difficulty, can you take it on? And the following day we will make sure that we're doing that. It is quite important that they start to take responsibility for their learning and understand the need to do that work, and it's a consolidation often. In terms of, yes, you should be thinking about senior schools because they've just opened for viewing, so it's really important that you get out and have a look. And I always think it's really nice to have a look when you don't feel under pressure. So to actually go around now and have a look, it's very easy to see a school that you don't like. You'll see lots of schools that you do like, and we will guide you absolutely through this process. We meet quite a lot this year to talk about where they're up to and where they're at, but often we're looking at schools to just decide where they suit, where they'd fit, what we think, knowing their work ethic and knowing how they are in class, what kind of school would suit them, and we're very open with you on that. And we've already had lots of conversations with parents already about that. I think one of the things about roles and responsibilities, which came up as a question just now, really difficult to do roles and responsibilities last year because we weren't here for a great deal of it, and actually we also weren't able to put roles and responsibilities across the school and the year groups because we were in bubbles. So yes, of course, that definitely will come into fuller effect this year, but bear in mind, actually, it's interesting. Traditionally, we would like to think, or years ago, you would have thought that on the reference, actually, if they had level 4, grade 4 violin and grade 3 piano, and they played chess and they were a triathlete and all of those things that, you know, made that personal statement so much greater. And actually, interestingly enough, the last 12 months has taught, the senior heads have been very, very focused on the interviews in the last 12 months, obviously because of COVID. But everything I've had back, every feedback I've had is just about that ability to have a general conversation, to really to feel your son's passions, what they're really interested in. That's what they'll be eking out. If you prepare your son to say, what job would you like to go into, Johnny? And he says, actually, I'd like to be an accountant. And then they start probing. If he's not actually, he may well want to be an accountant. He may be absolutely passionate about maths and he could tell the story. But actually, if they're not passionate about it, that interviewer is actually really trying to eke information out of them, and it's quite difficult. The most natural interviews are where somebody ends up talking about their chosen subject almost, and it free flows, and that's where you see their true character. And I think that's quite important to, you know, at St John's Head, Hampton Head, RGS, King's Wimbledon, Claremont Head. They all spent time with that and in that focus. So that's what we're heading for with that mentoring, that they can just have general conversations about lots of big picture things and feel confident to give their opinion and what they're passionate about. And it doesn't matter what they're passionate about. If they're passionate about aeroplanes or if they're passionate about sailing, it's actually fine. When you hear them flow, it is fascinating. So I think that we encourage them to do that as much as possible. But you're right, the roles and responsibilities all have some relevance, and we certainly write references that talk about the character and the personality of the children. I'm not listing time after time what grades they're in. So please don't feel that you need to put them under pressure for that. There will be interview practice. And what we do with the interview practice is we tend to split it between us. And interestingly, we'll say this, so we might do a mock interview with one child and say, actually, they need some more formal aspects of interview practice and we'll send them to somebody else. We may well say, actually, they just need to talk a little bit more, and therefore we'll give them to somebody else. And we look at that sort of slightly bespoke interview practice for them. Oh, in the middle of that, there's a rugby question. I'm not sure I can answer that,
Yeah,
but it says, is rugby compulsory if my son prefers football?
Yeah, so the sport that they're doing that's on the timetable at games, we do encourage them to participate in, but obviously with clubs, there's a choice. So if rugby's on the games curriculum for that term, then we would like your son to get involved, and obviously that can look, it can look like multiple things. It might be, they don't participate in the same level of contact, or, at the end of the day, Mr. Blood would just welcome a conversation if your son is reticent in any way with with whatever sport, because we want to make sure the boys feel comfortable with all the sports that they're playing.
There's a question about the senior school forum. We've just gone out to quite a lot of the senior schools. Lots of them are not keen to do any live open forums. And we've been looking at the best model and whether there's a possibility for us to do a virtual forum with some of the senior schools, and how that would look. Interestingly, with a year group as large as yours, we could be looking at in excess of 30 schools. So it's about making sure that we're also looking at the right schools for you, if you like. So we are, Mrs. Smith is on that at the moment, looking at what the schools are open to, and it's differing, it's very differing. Some schools are still very cautious, and other schools are opening their doors to hundreds of visitors. So we're very much sort of taking their lead at the moment. There's a conversation there. It was quite interesting, Mrs. Dillon talking about mentoring. I had my year 6 group mentoring earlier in the week, and I was thinking, yeah, we probably should be touching on some interview questions and sort of asking some big picture questions. And it's incredible how when they start the conversations and one of them starts the ball rolling, how incredibly talented the boys are. And your boys are exactly the same. They are very, very capable of actually, because that's the way we work our lessons in school. We want them to speak out. We want them to offer their opinions. We work that growth mindset where it's okay if it's not quite all perfect. They are confident in their conversations, and it's just about refining that. So that mentoring really does work for that, and it does give them that safe space, as Mrs. Dillon said, just to be. If you're having a bit of a down day, it could well be that mentoring is the time when you speak about that. So there is that opportunity. I do totally understand, having been there myself, and albeit some time ago, the stress that senior schools feel for you. I've been there. I know what it's like. I know that angst in your stomach when you start worrying about it and you wish you could go in and do the exam for them, and you think of all the ways, in fact, that you could try and do that. Please, if you're feeling that and you're concerned, please make sure that doesn't pass on to your son, because it's really important that they don't feed off your stress. One of the things, when the boys started to get their results at year 6 last year, in my mentoring group, I asked them, what are you most concerned about? And their biggest concern was letting their parents down. Unanimous. I'm worried what my mum's going to say. I'm worried what my dad's going to say. I think it's okay to be stressed about it, and it's okay to be anxious about it, but we mustn't be passing that on to the children. And if you are concerned about it, please do contact any one of us. Mrs. Johnson can help, Mr. King can help, Mr. Dillon, Mr. Temlett, Mr. Warren. There's plenty of people there that can help and talk you through. And sometimes it is just talking through that is all is required. So please don't be panicking about that. It's far too early for you to be doing any of that. In fact, don't panic about it at all. There's a question about reading there. Will they be reading the same book at home and school, or will these be separate? I'm going to let someone else answer that.
Well, I think that's the fact that the last question is about reading, I think, is appropriate. I'm happy to answer that, Mr. Dillon. I think I know the answer. They're going to be doing a poem, The Highwayman, now in year 5. They will be doing various set books throughout the year. It may be that the set book does come home, but I absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt that both Mr. Temlett and Ms. Dillon want them to be reading other books over and above the English books or the set books that they're going to be doing at home as well. It may be that some boys get sent home the book early or over the various holidays to pre-read it, and that will be in a discussion with you, a one-to-one discussion with you.
There's a question about if you're new to the year group, and obviously you'll be aware that there are a few new boys to the year group, and I actually have to take that opportunity to say a huge thank you to you as parents of boys that have been here for a while, who have just taken those new boys under their wings and have been amazing. I'm always wowed and incredulous at just how welcoming they all are, and so thank you in advance for that. But actually, it's amazing how quickly they fall into the position. They understand where they need to be and what they need to do, and we support individually with that too. So there will be, first of all, we obviously need them to settle, and that's important. No child succeeds unless they're happy. So the first thing is we need them to be happy at school. So if they've been slightly anxious before in their last school, or they've had some slight concerns before, our job now is just to settle that and to make sure that they feel completely welcomed and part of the Surbiton community. But then moving on from that, we'll make it and we will let you know those things that you can help with, which will make that transition for them just that bit smoother. So far, that they've done brilliantly, and they've settled really, really well. Oh, that's good, because I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't read any others.
So I will. There's one or two more, but I'm going to respond to those directly.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I do hope it was useful. I hope you will see that the teachers have put in an enormous amount of time, an effort to try and make sure that we are keeping you very much abreast of what we're doing. But do please feel free, if there's anything on a more personal note that you would like to email us and need to see us about, please do feel free to do that. It very much is an open door policy, post-COVID and pre-COVID. Slightly less important topic, but there may need to be some thought on mixing year 6, year 4 and year 5 playtime. Thank you. Yes, we're trialling this week, just because, as you may know, we've just had the Astro at the front done, so we're trialling how it works and whether the free flow of that works. And we will start making, both at Charles Burney and at Avenue Elmers, there'll be tweaks again next week. We are there very much watching that, so we've got first-hand eyes on that. Thank you very much for joining us, and nearly there at the weekend, and enjoy your weekend.